Open embryo adoption can be such a beautiful thing, and we have a wonderful illustration of that on today's podcast episode. Thanks for joining us here on the Embryo Adoption Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Mellinger. Of course, it's brought to you by the National Embryo Donation Center, and you can find out more about us and our work at the NEDC by going to embryodonation.org, embryodonation.org. So the two families with me today are David and Laura George. They're on the adopting side of the equation, and Nicole and Gerard Straka are on the donating side of the equation. Really looking forward to talking with both families here. And I'm going to start with you, Laura and David. A lot of our NEDC folks know your story. We shared it recently on social media and the website, and honestly, it got one of the biggest responses that we have ever had to a story that we have shared in this way, because it is unique. And so for those who don't know it, I'll sort of get the preamble going. You guys came and did embryo adoption, had a beautiful son named Denver, and then had begun the process of selecting embryos again, going through again, looking for siblings. And then Denver tragically passed unexpectedly, not quite a year old. Again, beautiful kid. He ran through the halls here at the NEDC. We all got to meet him. And you took some time to do some searching, understandably, after that, but decided you were going to go through with embryo adoption again. So as you started the process again, Laura and David, explain what factors were important to you.
Yeah, I think primarily we were looking for a larger number of embryos, really primarily driven by our hope to have multiple children, and in hopes that those children would be biological siblings to one another, all within our household. That was something we strove for. And then we also were filtering based on the age of the mother at the time that the embryos were created, and that there was some science behind that to kind of help with the I guess kind of the success of that embryo transfer and the medical success of those embryos. We were targeting kind of a younger age, kind of 35 or under, and then we were also trying to find embryos that did not have an egg donor or a sperm donor, just to simplify the complexity of an already complex situation. And then certainly the medical and mental health of the donating family was an important criteria for us.
So as you looked through, Nicole and Gerard just checked all the boxes.
They did, yeah, and especially the embryo size, having 20 embryos, which was a little, it was a little daunting to think about, but at the same time, knowing that high probability that we wouldn't use them all, like we felt okay that they would go back and hopefully be adopted, and then just expand that family tree for us, and then also for Nicole and Gerard.
Well, let's bring you in now, Nicole and Gerard. Explain how your own family building process played out and why you ended up turning to the NEDC down the road.
Well, I'm married up, so Gerard's got a little age on me, and when we met, he already had 2 daughters, and had actually gone through the snipping process. So we, but I had not been married before, no children, and that was kind of part of the package for me. So after trying a reversal for him, which was unsuccessful, we talked to a fertility specialist, and she said, you really should have saved your money on that one. Come straight to me to begin with. So yeah, we went through that a few times, had a few miscarriages. But in God's timing, he gave us the perfect set when it was right. So we got pregnant with the twins right away, and they were boy girl. And honestly, I don't even think we ever discussed whether we would want more or go back. I think it just was, we were so lucky to have a boy and a girl two at the same time, and we
I
were
was ready
so
to be
pleased.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. So it just worked out perfectly for us.
How old are your kids now?
16.
Yep.
16. Wow, amazing. So interesting. It's not uncommon to hear that nobody really discussed on the front end, what are we going to do with embryos that we have remaining? So when did you really start to think about that, and how'd you decide on the NEDC?
Well, I guess it just took a while. They just kind of sat in limbo and frozen for years. And then they just contacted us and
Yeah.
said, what do you want to do with these? We're going to start charging. I'm going, hold it. We're not going to use them. I wanted to donate them to science, and she couldn't do that. So
You actually wanted to adopt them out first.
yeah, I wanted to adopt them. She said she didn't want to do that. And I said, well, let's just give them to science. It's stupid to destroy them. You might as well use them, something maybe helpful. And then Nicole's better at this story.
Yeah, so it was just one of those things. We hadn't, we signed so many papers when we went through the fertility process. And it was, it had to have been like when the kids were about 12, probably. I remember where I was at, and I just,
We're not very good at this.
yeah, sorry.
Take your time. Take your time.
Looking back now, and even at the time, I think I kind of knew, like, God didn't just tap me on the shoulder. He was kind of slapping me around and shaking me, going, hello. Because I hadn't thought of what we did with remaining embryos for 12 years. And then all of a sudden I had this thought. I'm walking through the kitchen at my mom and dad's house, and I literally stopped walking because the thought was so powerful. And my thought was, did we have remaining embryos? What did we do with them? What a weird thought. And I kind of brushed it off and continued on. And about, 2 months later, I get a packet in the mail that says, hey, we have your remaining frozen embryos, and we're changing the process. We are shipping them off, and here's your options where they can be shipped to. And you have 60 days to decide if you want us to ship them, or if you want us to destroy them, or if you want to adopt them out, or you want to donate them to science, or if you want to continue freezing them and grow your family. So I'm like, can't deal with that, push that aside. And then I get another notice at 30 days and then a 10-day. And we had talked about it, and my heart was not big enough to be able to do anything with these. To be honest, I said no to all the options.
Yeah.
There was no way that I was able to adopt these out and know that somewhere in the world we would have little Colt and Harleys running around, and I wouldn't get to know them and mother them and love them. And so I said no to all of them. And then on the last day, I finally said, okay, we'll donate that. No, I found my paperwork.
Oh.
I marked that we would donate them for science and research. And then I was tormented after that. And they needed a credit card. They needed,
Yeah.
there's a charge to do that. So we gave them that paperwork, and I was silently tormented for months. Wondering what I did, and if God would ever forgive me for that. So in his great timing, and the great fixer fixed it. Several months later, we went on a vacation, and while we were out of state, my credit card got hacked. And a few weeks after we got back, I had a voicemail. This man was so nice. His voicemail was, "We are so sorry. We are so behind schedule. We haven't gotten to your embryos yet, and we're going to process them today, but your credit card was declined."
Unreal. And this gives you the chance
Yeah.
to change your mind and make another decision.
Yep. I called him right back and said, "I need new paperwork." It took a while, but God grew my heart, flipped it inside out, and now we're so happy.
It is an unbelievable story. So a hacked credit card that couldn't be processed has ended up in these beautiful little lives who are running around in David and Laura's home right now. They're probably not all running, but but anyway, at least a couple of them are. I can tell you that. This is gosh, it's just amazing. So take me, each of you, from your perspective, take me through what the mediation process was like. I think it's important to get a window into that. When people do open adoption, that's a key part of the process. From your end, David and Laura, talk about the mediation process with Nicole and Gerard and how you felt it went.
Yeah, certainly it was positive. It really had served for us the foundation building blocks to enable our relationship to start to be formed. We certainly knew we wanted to have a relationship that was open, really for the benefit of the siblings, both those that would be in our home and with Gerard and Nicole's children. But certainly we had needed some help to kind of navigate what that would look like. There's a lot to be considered that we were naive to know needed to be considered. You know, things like, do we want to have face-to-face visits? How do we want to communicate, written or over the phone, or, you know, and how do you kind of build this relationship that really just started from a one-page piece of paper that says, hey, we have 20 embryos that are, you know, PNP and they've been frozen for so many years. And, you know, how do you start from that to building that kind of larger relationship that you desire? And so mediation provided us the opportunity to explore and navigate those things, and then also gave us kind of an open middle ground that felt safe for us to start that communication and start asking one another questions, and really helped us foster getting to know one another.
Nicole and Gerard, as you got to know David and Laura, and I know you didn't necessarily know their names through the process, through the ODA, Open Donation Agreement process, but you know, what were your impressions? What were your feelings as you learned more about them?
I guess I don't know, you want to give them space because you don't really know them. So you just kind of let them go their way, and if they want to get closer, and because we wanted as much communication as we could, and we get it. And you know, whether you're private and want to keep it to yourself, or so, we're really glad they shared with us, and they have been very, very good, more than we expected. And I hope it continues because it's fun for my wife and I to see that, and it's really nice.
And Gerard, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I do have to ask. So, like, I'm going to just take a step back real quickly. Like, at first, you did not want to donate the embryos for adoption. I mean, I guess it sounds like you did, and then you didn't, and you had made the decision. So I'm guessing God worked on your heart as well as Nicole's when Nicole made the decision to change the form.
No, I actually did want it. I wanted to donate them. I wanted to adopt them out.
Okay.
She didn't really want to. I said, well, let's give them to science. I just didn't want to destroy him, but I was pretty flexible. I was happy with my family, but I wanted to help somebody else, but she couldn't do that. And I had one daughter that had to kind of go through it, but we knew we didn't want to go that route. And it was just scary for me to adopt them out because if the kids aren't healthy, you always, but I worried about that for myself too. So,
Yeah.
you know, because you always think, oh gosh, family, that's a big thing. I don't know, but no, I wanted to adopt them out right away.
So the open donation agreement process worked out pretty well with you guys. What, 4 to 6 weeks?
Yes, very well.
That was, had I known on the front end and I say but you see that he immediately had a bigger, more open heart, and he's always been more generous in that regard than I. So but I say had I known on the front end when I got all that paperwork saying you have a decision to make in 60 days, had I known that it could be this open and this smooth and this fantastic, I maybe would have made a different choice, but obviously that's the process God had to put me through, and maybe this will help other people too to hear this. But in my mind, that never even seemed like an option, that we would get to know the family that requested our embryos, and then we could possibly develop a relationship and friendship and family style friendship. It never even crossed my mind, but that would have helped me for sure, I think.
I always thought maybe we'd just be on vacation someday. And
Gosh,
I wonder if those are Colt and
yeah.
Harley's brothers.
Oh.
That's what scared me, I think, because I look at every dark-haired kid with brown eyes and I'd be like, is that them?
You want to tap them on the shoulder.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, hey, and the big news, the great conclusion really of this story is obviously, okay, it went through, the embryos were selected by David and Laura, and now they have 2 sets of twins. You've got Dylan and Jade, the girls, you've got Elias and Casey, the boys. Okay, and I'll talk with David and Laura in a second, obviously, about that. I mean, but Nicole and Gerard, what was it like for you and the girls were born first? What was it like when you heard that they were born? I mean, were you in touch during the pregnancy process? Can you talk about that?
We were in touch. I mean, they kept in touch with us really good, how everything was going. And Laura did great doing that and keeping in touch and keep us informed. And then I was really happy. I wanted to have a boy and a girl, of course, but then just quit. No, I'm glad they've got 4 healthy ones, that's for sure. Yeah.
And they were really, you guys have been so generous. I know I've said this before, but you've been so generous with your information and keeping in touch. And it's really, that has just been such a gift. And we love you guys for that.
I'll echo that. We know David and Laura well here, and they are generous and do have big hearts, key part of this family. And man, I remember David and Laura when we, before you had Dylan and Jade, and I remember in a room just on the other side of this wall, we all gathered in a circle, like everybody who worked at the NDDC at that time, which wasn't as many as work here now. We all gathered in prayer the day before the transfer. And, you look at what God has brought. Can you try to put into words what you felt when both sets of twins were born, Laura and David?
Well, it's funny because it's really different, but with the girls, we honestly felt a ton of anxiety because COVID had just happened. And so not only did we have these fears of just the health of our kids after losing a child, and just a ton of fear and anxiety around sickness, or are they breathing, and all of those things, and can we do this again? And now there's 2 of them, and now there's this pandemic that not only just could natural things kill our kids, but now we have this pandemic to think about, and we didn't have as much help and support that we had put into place, kind of anticipating all these anxieties we would have. So it was, the girls were pretty stressful, actually. We were grateful and we were so happy to just get to that day. And because throughout the whole pregnancy process, we always and we had some complications initially that it just we never felt like there was a guarantee. We never felt like oh, we just have it and they'll be born. So every like appointment and every trimester that we got through, we could just breathe a little bit more. And then they were born, which was a huge sigh of relief. But now it was like, now they're here. Now we really have to take care of them. And so it was pretty exhausting, I would say, with that. But we grew, but then we just felt like we naturally got back into being parents, which was what we love so much with Denver, that it just felt right. And God obviously provided for us because we were able to, I think just with exhaustion, we couldn't be too worried because we were just too tired to worry at that point. That we were just able to do it. And, we got the help when we could and where we could. I don't think we ever said no to any help that we could get. And we're grateful, like basically our whole family is in town. And so we utilized whatever we felt safe to receive. And then with the boys, it was really different with the boys. I mean, obviously there's more kids and there's stress in knowing they have to take care of these kids, but we felt like we could really just enjoy that process a lot more. And also, at least for me, I know when it came to deciding if we would continue to do additional transfers and have more kids, it was never like a yes or no. Did we feel that direction? It was just more like kind of limbo. And we felt like if there wasn't a stern no, then let's just keep trying. But after the boys were born, like, at least for me, I felt like there was just a lot of peace that we're done. Like, this is it, we're good with this. I was done being pregnant at that point. I didn't want to be pregnant anymore. And
a lot.
yeah. So I was content with that. And then it just, to have two boys or two girls and then two boys. Obviously we didn't plan for that. We never knew the genders of these kids when they were transferred of the embryos. And there was a blessing in having girls, having two girls after the loss of Denver, and just, we were worried, like, what would it be like to raise boys again? And with the memory of him, but I felt like that we didn't really have to deal with yet until there was more healing. And then he brought us Elias and Casey. And so now it's just, it's fun at this point, taking care of these two boys and seeing the girls taking care of the boys and interacting with them. It's just a lot of joy.
And I love too that you have the picture of you and David with Denver just behind you in the room where you are right now. He's always part of the family. I mean, that's for sure. He's touched a lot of lives in his own short life. So I want to ask you guys, both sides, what your relationship looks like now. I think that's the key question for a lot of people who are considering doing an open donation. They're like, well, what do we have to get together for vacation? Do we just talk by email? Do we Zoom? What does it look like? So David and Laura, I'll get it from your perspective, and then we'll go with Nicole and Gerard.
Sure. Well, so we contractually, agreed through the mediation process, came to an agreement that we both were comfortable with. And that was, I think, like updates throughout pregnancy and then birth update. And then, I don't know, I think it's like 2 updates a year and pictures. At this point, I don't really know, because I feel like it's, instead of it being more contractually and like on a schedule, it's just spontaneous but frequent, like when we think about it. And through the pregnancy process, we only communicated through emails, but then afterwards we were offered the option to share additional information. So we felt comfortable at that point to share our phone numbers. And so it's primarily Nicole and I that text, and just pictures and updates of our kids that we send, and kind of the family. And then we also have, I think the agreement was within 5 years of birth, a face-to-face visit. And that was able to happen, would have been last year over Father's Day weekend. So was it Harley had a tournament like in Ohio and Cincinnati, an hour and a half from us. Like, we're like 18 hours apart or something. And she was having this tournament. So they reached out and asked if we might be able to connect because they're already going to be so close. And so David and I brought the girls. I was pregnant at that point, and then Nicole and Gerard brought a bunch of their family, which was really cool. I mean, I honestly didn't think about bringing our family just because, you know, for us, it was just about kind of weaning into things and seeing how they started. And if we wanted to have more and we felt comfortable, then opening it up a little bit more. And that, you know, just protection for us and our hearts. And, but in all of the steps in the emails and in the texts, and then even in meeting in person and doing FaceTime, it just felt comfortable and it felt really natural to progress to more communication. And that's been such a gift because I feel like Nicole and Gerard really, without being biological family, are so similar to us and our families. And that has been such a blessing because at this point, it's just like family in Nebraska. We just talk about the Nebraska family, and it's just family a little bit, you know, a little bit further away, but they're still family. And we really appreciate, I mean, in the beginning as adopting embryos for us, and similar, I would say, to Nicole, like in her hesitation, that there is hesitation, like, will we be able to raise these kids that aren't biologically ours and feel like they're ours? Or will we feel pressure from this family of what to call them, or certain dynamics where we felt like we really weren't like mom and dad. And Nicole and Gerard have just been amazing too. Like, we never felt pressured, or did we ever feel like, well, these are really our kids and you're just taking care of them, or like, never at all. It's just, and so I don't even really know how to put that in words other than it was so settling. And we felt like at peace in the relationship and how they approach things, and that sensitivity towards us taking care of their biological kids, and that huge gift. And obviously, I mean, Nicole spoke to it. That's a huge decision. And it doesn't, we're not always as generous and as open-hearted. And we had times throughout this process of feeling like we wanted to protect certain things about our hearts and what that would look like. But the whole process has just felt completely God ordained and incredible.
Yeah.
Nicole and Gerard, what would you add to that?
Well, I want to speak on the other side of what Laura was saying about the pressures or no pressures. Never once, after my heart was flipped inside out, never once have I felt like these are our kids.
No.
These are your kids. I do like to think of them as siblings to our kids. So we do consider you guys family. You're our Ohio family. You know, and I'm always asking the kids like, oh, did you tell your friends about your siblings in Ohio? You know? So it's such a fun, gosh, a heart-filled story to share with people that I always say, it's not my story to tell. I was just the vessel. It's God's story. God took care of this from the beginning. And we're just really thankful that David and Laura have been so open. And it's kind of, for me, I feel like I'm connecting with you guys in Ohio. Like, I connect with my sister-in-laws or some really good friends from college, you know, because you'll send videos and I'm like, oh, okay, see what Colt and Harley are doing. Then I send pictures of my kids and we just share that stuff so openly and freely. And I love that you love to receive stuff on my kids, our kids, because, you know, moms like to share that stuff. So it's nice to know that you receive it well.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left. What do Colt and Harley, I mean, they're teenagers. What do they think of all this?
Colt, are you here? Come in here. I got one. He can come talk about it.
Great.
One's at basketball camp.
And by the way, while we're waiting for him, I just want to thank you, Nicole and Gerard. I think you're the first guests who have ever used the term snipping process on the Embryo Adoption Podcast. So I'm going to be staying away from any scissors or sharp objects.
I don't recommend to any of your viewers either.
Hey, this is Colt.
Yep. Yeah, this is our baby.
Tell me what you think about all this. It's good to meet you, young man. But what's it like, this Ohio family, and seeing these genetic siblings of yours who are so much younger?
It was pretty cool. It's not like you know them, but it was just cool because you're yeah, we have family out there, and then you can tell people that are how many brothers and sisters do you have? I'm well, we have this, and then because I have 2 half sisters that I consider we're really close, but then we also have the ones I've never met in Ohio. Well, 2 of them. Yeah. And then so it's kind of cool, just showing everybody and telling them about them, and yeah, it's just cool, I guess.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us, sticking your head in. You should have had a V8 today. You look a little sideways. Those who are seeing
his allergies are gone. He usually looks a little better.
See, those who are seeing the video version will know what I mean. But hey, we appreciate it. It's nice having a surprise guest to hear about this. David and Laura, I'll end it with you. What are the girls are a couple of years old. What do they think of this? Are they able to, do they grasp it at all?
No, I don't think they have any idea at this point. I mean, yeah, because when we met with you guys, they were only a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it's just more people and stuff. But when Colt came in, I just thought one of the first things I thought I was really excited about when the boys were born was that now Colt has brothers. And because he had these half sisters and he has his sister, and then he had Dylan and Jade, and I was oh my gosh. So when the boys were born, I was he has brothers now. I was excited about, even they're significantly younger than him, but that was exciting to think about. And so, I mean, we do intend to, with the kids too, obviously, we talk about Nebraska and we talk about you guys, but they really only get to know people when they see them in person at this point, but starting to show them more pictures, and if we have any more FaceTime calls, interacting in that way. So they'll definitely be the Stracas and their family in Nebraska will definitely be a part of the family tree that we explain to them. And so hopefully it's just, it's just family that lives a little bit further away.
Well, speaking as an Indiana boy, I can tell you it has been a pleasure to be in the middle of this Nebraska-Ohio sandwich. It's been an all Midwest edition, and that is a good thing. But I just want to thank both of you, both of your families, for doing this. This is so helpful, enlightening, and I think it's going to be encouraging to the hundreds, maybe thousands of folks who will watch or listen to it. So, hey, thank you all, David, Laura, Nicole, Gerard. It has been an absolute delight.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
And if you want any more information about embryo adoption, embryo donation, and the NEDC, of course, you can go to our website, embryodonation.org. Again, that's embryodonation.org. I'm Mark Millinger, and this has been the Embryo Adoption Podcast.